Why does life feel so boring, and what can you do about it? This is a very peculiar problem and one of the unique ways in which life is actually harder in the new world. So why does life feel so boring? Two big reasons, specifically why in today's day and age life feels so boring. Your survival needs are highly met in modern society. Sure, you still have to go to work and, earn a living in order to have access to the things that meet your survival needs, but you don't have to build the home. You don't have to dig the well. You don't have to break in the horse. You buy a car, you buy a house, and you have a tap, you buy a water filter. You go to the store to buy your food. You don't have to grow your crops. So there's a lot less manual labor involved in meeting those survival needs in the modern world, in developed countries especially. Because of this, there's less friction on a day-to-day level, and there's more leisure time. So that leisure time opens up a capacity for boredom. Now, of course, it's not just the leisure time in and of itself that causes life to feel so boring. There's other reasons as well in conjunction with that. And the next big reason, the second of two big reasons that I'm talking about here, you have immense access to high stimulation at low effort costs. So you can just open your laptop, pull up Netflix, and start watching some, high quality entertainment, things that are really stimulating for you. You can pull out your phone at any given time, go on Instagram, again, something very, very stimulating for you, watching YouTube videos, playing, games on your phone or on your computer, on your tablet, whatever. A lot of high stimulation at low effort. Now, I would argue that this is the biggest reason that life feels so boring for a lot of people, because what all this access to high stimulation does is it actually lowers your threshold for experiencing boredom. So let me break this down and I'll try to simplify it as best as I can. So all these highly stimulating things that you have very easy access to, they stimulate you, they give you pleasure on a neurochemical level, right? And in terms of like the activity in your brain, they're stimulating pleasure. But the source for the modulation of both pain and pleasure in your brain are actually co-located. So that means they're going on in the same part of the brain. This includes the amygdala, the pallidum, and the nucleus accumbens, if there's any nerds out there that are really interested in where in the brain. But not as important. What's important is that they're co-located. They work together in a sort of dance of homeostasis. So as you experience all this highly stimulating pleasure, the brain is going to tip the scales in the other direction to try to maintain balance. And like I said, I'm simplifying this, so perhaps on technicalities, this is not 1000% the case, but as far as your comprehension goes, this is relatively accurate. So as you experience all this high stimulation at low effort, right, you're not experiencing any sort of pain to also get the pleasure. It's pure stimulation, pure pleasure. Your brain is going to tip the scales in the other direction. Now, this is going to lower the baseline of where you're normally feeling. So now, you went on your phone, you scrolled for an hour, you put the phone back in your pocket, you feel worse afterwards than you did when you started, even though you just had all that pleasure and, you could feel it. If you're mindful enough, you could actually feel that you're kind of hooked, right? That's why you scroll for a long time sometimes. It's like, whoa, how did I spend so much time doing that? It's because you're chasing that stimulation, right? Your neurochemistry is actually telling you to keep scrolling. But then you realize that you feel like shit after. You're like, damn, why am I sad all of a sudden? Why am I feeling kind of low? And it's because you've created this imbalance in your neurochemistry. Now your baseline is very low. You're dopamine deficient. And your threshold for boredom is much lower as well. You are going to be more quickly bored now that you've lowered that threshold. So now, because of this entire process, maybe you engage in this type of behavior day after day after day, week after week, month after month. Now your regular waking consciousness is in this sort of very compulsive state where you just want to take out your phone all the time because you're so bored. You can't even cook a meal without taking out your phone and going through some YouTube shorts or Instagram reels. So this is part of why you feel so bored all the time, because you've lowered your threshold to experience boredom through this compulsive, very highly addictive behavior. So that's the problem. I'll give an honorable mention to a few other problems that we'll loosely talk about when we go on to the solutions half of this video. But other problems include lacking meaning in your life, lacking a sense of purpose, lacking deep relationships, hobbies that you are passionate about. And when these four things that I just mentioned are lacking, you are going to be more likely to be spending your time engaging in these highly stimulating activities that require little to no effort, deregulating your neurochemistry, lowering your quality of life, and just feeling like you're always kind of bored all the time and craving stimulation. Now let's talk about the solutions. So I always say the first step to solving a problem is becoming aware of the problem itself. Awareness alone is curative. I've said that in probably 3/4 of all my videos. Now you know what the issue is. You're aware of how the process works. You're aware of how the technology can easily just like hijack your limbic system and keep you hooked. You're probably aware of that already to a degree if you've just observed, your own capacity to scroll and scroll and scroll. But now you're a little bit more aware of it. You're aware of how the whole process works neurochemically. At least loosely you're aware of how it works and why it keeps you so engaged. So now that you have this awareness, you can use it. You can keep it in your back pocket, and anytime you find yourself engaging in those compulsive behaviors, you can stop yourself. You're going to be more aware of, oh, here it goes again. Here it goes. I'm actively lowering my boredom threshold, I'll call it. I'm actively depleting my dopamine. Let me catch myself. Let me stop, because I know I'm going to feel like shit in 20 minutes or 30 minutes if you don't already, if I keep doing this. So you can catch yourself with this newfound awareness and try to just limit that behavior. I also think a meditation practice is going to really aid you in this, because I myself know that I'm aware of this phenomenon. I'm aware of the neurochemistry behind all of it. But sometimes I still fall into the abyss of the scrolling. But I find I'm much less likely to do so if I'm being consistent with longer meditations throughout my day. So the more you can meditate, the better. If you don't know how to meditate, you don't really know too much about it, I have videos on meditation. I'll link them in the description down below. You can go check those out. It's pretty straightforward. You are just going to be being aware of your mental activity. That's essentially the big takeaway for meditation that's going to help you here. You're going to be able to watch the impulse to keep scrolling. You're going to be able to kind of step outside of yourself, catch yourself in the act, and stop yourself from doing so. You're going to be more mindful about, the action that you're taking throughout your day. So that is like a no-brainer. That has no downsides. Highly recommend that as a way to aid this newfound awareness of the whole process to get you to stop engaging in the compulsive behavior that's making you so freaking bored all the time. And by the way, compulsive behaviors that make life feel so boring are not simply scrolling on social media, but really anything that's highly stimulating at the cost of low effort is going to throw your whole dopaminergic system out of whack, and it's going to lower your threshold for boredom. This includes gambling. This includes alcohol, really any drugs. This includes any form of addiction that does not require effort or a good amount of effort. And I only make that distinction there. I was going to just say any form of addiction, but that being said, some people are addicted to work, for example, or sometimes I find I'm addicted to grappling. But that's not going to contribute to this sense of feeling bored all the time, because you have to put in efforts. You have to go through pain, so to speak, to also be experiencing that pleasure. So the scales are staying relatively balanced. As you're experiencing some of that pain, you're also experiencing some of that pleasure. You're not just, pushing the lever forward on straight pleasure at the cost of no effort. So just watch out for any compulsive behaviors that you have, anything that is addictive for you. is going to contribute to this sense of life feeling so boring all the time. So use your newfound awareness and your meditation practice to nip those in the butt and not engage in them as often. Obviously, if you have drug issues, I recommend seeking professional help. Full disclaimer, this is not medical advice. Okay, so that's one part of the solution. But another big part of the solution, and this is what I briefly talked about at the end of talking about the problems, is finding some sense of purpose, if you don't have one already, building deep, strong relationships and engaging in those. The longest study ever done on human happiness shows that that's the most important thing for a human to be happy, is deep, meaningful relationships. Not necessarily quantity, but more so quality. So focus on building quality relationships. And that's just going to be taking up your time more. You'll notice if you hang out with friends and you have a good time, you had your phone in your bag all day and you didn't even think about taking it out. Whereas when you're kind of all alone, you're a little bit bored, you have more of this leisure time that's not being filled with anything else, you're going to be more likely to be on your phone all the time. So, like I said, some sense of purpose, building deep relationships, passions, hobbies, healthy things that are going to take up your time, that are going to increase the amount of friction in your life if you find you're someone who doesn't really have too much friction in their life. Now, different people need different amounts of friction to feel fulfilled. I'm personally someone who I find needs quite a bit of friction. And I say friction in a healthy sense. Friction as in something that requires effort. I find I need quite a bit of friction in activities that I enjoy to feel fulfilled. The hobby that I have that comes to mind that I think gives me the most friction in my life is jiu-jitsu. That's one of the most high friction activities I could think of, right? It's literally like somebody's trying to strangle you or separate your arm until you say, okay, you win. But if you're not somebody who requires a lot of friction, you don't have to be doing any extreme sports or anything like that, right? You can just take up some more hobbies. But perhaps for you, you're not looking for too much more friction in your life. You already feel you have an adequate amount, but maybe a new hobby will still serve you. In that case, you can learn how to play an instrument. Maybe reading is your new hobby. Maybe learning how to have a little bit more expertise in the kitchen, learning how to cook better. Whatever it might be, these serve you in a lot of ways, including deeper relationships, right? Oftentimes these new hobbies that you're gonna dive into are going to have some communities around them, whether that's online communities or, I know for me, like I said, one of my hobbies is jiu-jitsu. There's a big community in jiu-jitsu. I see a lot of the same training partners on the mats every day, so you build relationships there. You get the point. It's always good to have some new hobbies in your life. It keeps you more engaged. A lot of times it keeps you active depending on what it is, and it just raises the quality of your life overall. One thing I will say when trying new hobbies, learning new things, is that you're probably gonna have to try a few of them and make sure you're sticking it out long enough to actually become competent in whatever that new hobby is. Developing a little bit of skill to the point where you can have some success in it. Because if you don't stick it out long enough to start to have some success in it, you're not even really gonna know if you like it. You're just gonna be thinking you don't like it because it's frustrating. And maybe in the beginning, it's gonna be too frustrating. But then as you learn, it's gonna be a good amount of frustrating. It's a little bit frustrating because you're still learning, but you'll be competent enough to have enough skill to enjoy it. So stick it out long enough to see if you actually like it. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Just to summarize, the reason why life can feel so boring is because you're not fully engaged with life. You have a lot of easy access to highly stimulating things at low costs, and that lowers your threshold for boredom, throws your dopamine out of whack, makes you deficient in that. And also you might be lacking a sense of purpose, lacking deep relationships in your life, or even just some hobbies that would help you be more engaged and passionate about your life. And as I said, the solution to those things are becoming more mindful, which you already have by watching this video, of that process, empowering that mindfulness with meditation, and using this mindfulness, this awareness, to catch yourself from engaging in these compulsive behaviors. After you've done that, make sure you're filling up that time with more engaging things. Like I said, purpose, relationships, passions, hobbies. That's it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more content like this, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.